Welcome to this amazing panel. We are celebrating LGBTQ plus artists in the creative industries of Manchester in particular. This is obviously with Reform Radio, thanks to all the team here, and it's also funded by the National Lottery Reaching Communities Fund. So let's start off and introduce these amazing guests. First, we should introduce me, of course. I am Pops Roberts, your host for this evening. And should we start left to right over here? So we'll start with Beau. So this is Beau Scott. You are a creative producer, curator, photographer and performer. You are the creator of Creatures of Catharsis, an underground movement, as it were, club movement. And you've stage managed at Glastonbury, and you are currently the programmer at Pride's spin-off Arts and Communities Festival, Superbia. Welcome.
Thank you.
And Mandla, welcome.
Hello.
Welcome. A writer, performer and curator hailing from Zimbabwe with your touring show As British as a Watermelon. You've worked with the BFI, Edinburgh International Festival and the Outbox Theatre. Welcome.
Thank you. Lovely to be here.
And Banksie.
Hiya.
Hello. Queer entertainer, supermodel. Oh, I've added super.
I like that.
Events coordinator and filmmaker. You've worked for London Fashion Week, Printworks, and you have currently your own grassroots cabaret at the Feel Good Club in Manchester.
Are you flirting with me?
A little bit.
Oh, good, okay.
I'm toying with it. So obviously we've come together to celebrate our own creative industries, talk about our experiences, where we've come from, where we're at, and just generally enjoy each other's amazing careers. Well, I'm enjoying your amazing careers. So I would like to ask what you're up to at the moment. So I'll start left to right again.
Yeah. Well, as you said, at the moment, I'm programming Superbia Weekender, which has gone from Weekender to whole week because I got quite excited about it. So that's like as Pop said, that's like a sister leg of Manchester Pride that focuses around arts and culture and community in the queer scene of Manchester, and has events that are more centered around like family friendly events and all ages, and kind of lean away from the party nightclub side of Manchester Pride. So that's what I'm working on predominantly at the minute, and imminently at the minute.
And Mandla, how about yourself?
So I have been doing As British as a Watermelon for about 3 years now, and I'm still going.
It's amazing. We've seen it. It's amazing. Insanely good.
Thank you. And I'm just getting ready to pack my bags and go off to the Edinburgh International Festival in a couple of days. So yeah, that's really, really exciting.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Lovely. Banksy?
I'm working on some curations currently with to do with Manchester Pride, as well as the grassroots. Is that what you called it? Grassroots? Yeah, I'll go with that. Grassroots Cabaret Mischief. We've got an amazing cabaret coming up on Saturday of Pride with Superbia, which will be absolutely amazing in Feel Good Club. And then also continuously running with a night I have called Runway at Firehouse in Ancoats, which is kind of taking all of my blood, sweat and tears to put together.
Lovely. You only have about 2 tears. So
I know. I've only ever done that before. Yeah.
Lovely. So now that we're all introduced, I want to ask a question open to everyone. Did you always have an idea of what you wanted to do, or has your career happened another way?
Oh, I'll go first then. Well, I wanted to be a doctor originally. Yeah, I've told you that before. So I trained to be a doctor. I wanted to either be in midwifery or a doctor, and I did loads of little mini taster courses, and then I realized I was thick, which completely changed all of my plans personally. Basically, yeah, I was like, okay, what I'm gonna do is I loved the Manchester drag scene. I loved the Manchester queer community. I was a massive fan as a younger queer person of the Family Gorgeous and what they were doing in Manchester. And so I went, okay, how do I get to Manchester but don't have to pay a penny? I'll go to university, because they give you one of these maintenance loans. And so I went to uni, did a film degree, and just kind of used that degree to fund my nightlife career, and kind of started working all the way up that way. And then over time realised that actually I really enjoy watching and interacting with the people who are putting on the nights just as much as the people who are performing at the nights. And I thought, oh, well, Oh, well, I can do that. I mean, I looked at it as a really hard job. It's a really skillful job, but it was something I could really work towards, and that's what I'm kind of trying to do as much as I can now.
So I studied English literature and creative writing at university. So I did know that I wanted to be a writer, but I didn't think I actually would be. And my dad definitely didn't think I would be. I remember when he realised that I'd applied for English lit and creative writing and not like law or medicine or something, he was like, what are you going to do with that? And I was like, oh, it's fine, like, you know, I'll just like do a master's and, you know, become an academic and like, you know, it'll be fine, it'll be great. And he was like, okay, sure, that's what we can tell the family back home in Africa, because you can't just be like, I'm going to be a poet. And then I started performing my own poetry when I was a student, and someone who I really look up to, called Yasa Daly Ward, said some really lovely things about my work, and I still like remember that. And I think like just kind of putting myself out there more and more. And I definitely think moving to Manchester has had something to do with the full-timeness of my work. So I feel like organisations here like Contact and Black Gold Arts have always just kind of like really believed in me, and like spaces like queer Creatures of Catharsis, like to try out new work in like a really safe and trusting audience, has been part of what's kind of helped me kind of keep being an artist. For like being a freelancer, sometimes there's always a fear of like, what if no one ever wants me to make art ever again? But I feel like really safe and held in Manchester's creative community, and I don't know what I'd do if I like left. Yeah.
I've always kind of been in Ent's world, so as a singer and a performer. But my first paid job, was when I was 15 doing children's birthday parties. So I've always kind of been in like events from actually quite a young age, but then I ran off to try and be a pop star for a little while, which didn't really work out that well. And I found myself in a situation where I was under management and I was really, really controlled in everything I was doing in regards to the music we were making and the tours and all of the shenanigans that come along with that. And then I found a night called Cha Cha Boudoir, which was the Family Gorgeous in Sub 101. And to cut a long story really short, I had a situation with my management where I was told I was being followed. And when I was kind of discovering my queer identity, it was like there's sources watching you in the gay village and you can't go and be a queer and hang around with all these people. So I was like, so I'll do drag and then no one will know who I am. And these sources that are following me that obviously didn't exist won't know I'm in this band. So I really had this like double life moment and started doing drag and met the Family Gorgeous, and just like they totally blew my world apart in like the most beautiful way. Left my band and was like, right, I'm going to be a queer performer. Started performing with them, started doing drag more and singing and making music with Laurie. And then in terms of getting into events, the music we were making at the time, which was like just really depressing queer ballads, like her on a piano and me like singing dressed as a vampire. There wasn't any spaces that we could find. We'd go to the open mics and people would be like, what is this? Get it off. Bring the guy with the acoustic back. And then the drag nights. Yeah. And then the drag nights are like about having fun, and our music wasn't fun. It was sad and it was dark. So that's how Creatures of Catharsis came about. So I was like, I want to make a space that celebrates all different, or attempts to celebrate all different areas of queer art and performance art, but also in a way that can be introspective and quiet and isn't focusing on the entertainment side in its entirety. You know, you can get up there and you can do poetry and you can start conversation, and you can, you know, we can show all different breadths of the queer experience through art and through the catharsis of art in a space surrounded by a whole other bunch of queers. So, and that was where that came from, and then that's kind of snowballed, and now I get to do creatures in different formats in other spaces and kind of cut my teeth in DIY world, and now get to have a career as like, you know, have my bread and butter kind of corporate, you know, festival-y kind of things, and get to do that and be a production manager and do loads of spreadsheets because I love doing that, and then do like the creative side of it as well.
Amazing.
It's so funny though that Beau's talking so much about creatures in like such a thingy way, because my first gig ever performed was at Creatures.
Really?
Yeah. Like Beau gave me my first slot where I actually got to perform, and a load of really big people in the game now really owe a lot to Beau's nights and owe a lot to Beau's Creatures. Like it's where I always sent people to Creatures whenever they were like queers who didn't really have a spot in the village or didn't really have a spot at all these nights, because it was somewhere where you went and the place would be packed downstairs at Jimmy's, and it would be, you'd end up meeting someone that you really loved for years. Or, you know, like once I just like bumped into David Hoyle like sitting on a couch, and I'd be like, oh, I really love you, by the way, bye, see you later. And like I got my first chance there, and I just keep going back and back and back, and it got bigger and bigger and bigger to this point where people were literally like leaning over banisters upstairs to watch what show was going to happen. And a lot of people owe their experience of what queer nightlife is to Creatures, I think. And you're pretty great. Sorry, I'm not mean to. I can't say lick your ass.
Look, if you want a kiss, leave it till later. Right?
I'll give you a kiss. Mwah.
So I would ask that. That's prompted me to a new question. And I wonder how you feel. Do you feel like the LGBTQ scene, as it were, especially entertainment or the arts world, do you feel now that it's shifting and there is a lot more shades to the moods of what we have access to? Or do you still feel it's largely quite performative and very like a bit Will and Grace, you know what I mean? What's your observation of it? What's your experience of it?
I think when you look at performance in straight venues across Manchester now, it's amazing how many of them centre around queer performance art, and there's cabarets everywhere, and there's people dancing on every single surface they could possibly dance on, and that's really cool because it means there's a lot of people who can really pay their rent by being a queer performer in this city, and that's something that it's really special. And I think what seems to be happening now is that those same people who are those performers are then being brought into spaces where they're given creative autonomy to create what that space is, and bring those performers into that space in a way that's not like, we want some fun, we want a bit of a spectacle, so we're going to hire all of these weirdos. It's more, right, we love what you do. How can we kind of have a bit of a piece of that? How do we bring that into our space? And it's like, you know, like your stuff with the runway, that's a perfect example of that.
Yeah, so I started obviously with performance, and my kind of performance was at Creatures, but I quickly jumped into working with Albert Schloss, as well as you and a lot of other queer people in Manchester did. And that was a real like springboard into being able to go, oh my God, I can pay my rent. This is incredible. I could work every week if I wanted to. But then over time, there are more people who see that gem. And I think it does come from queer people, that gem of like inspiration
and
that people
free.
see. Exactly. People see those I always call them punters, but it's not very respectful. Those punters who come into like Schloss.
Sheep.
Yeah,
Cattle.
the sheep. Whoa. Yeah, the straight. No, I'm joking. Those allies. Oh no.
Redacted.
Redacted. Cut. No. Basically, the people who come to Schloss, they go, "Oh my God, like I'm having the best night of my life. Best night. These people are amazing. They look incredible, but they also are giving me so much." And I think back when I started Schloss, especially, I got to interact with so many straight cis white people who like would never have met this entire rainbow of people in their life, but have now, probably from the experience of going at Schloss, changed their perspective on queer people in general. And then other venues have realized that that's like a key gem, so they've taken it. Like I currently work with Firehouse and Ramona, and they're doing it now as well, and they're giving me opportunities. And I think the best thing about Manchester in general for that is that people have asked me for like years, why have you never moved, you got to a certain point, why have you not just gone to London straight after? And I find it so funny that people ask that, because I've worked in London, I've worked with people who live in London, and I only know Manchester as the place where we get so much. Like, we should be really lucky, but also we do work incredibly hard, but we get a really amazing wage and really amazing opportunities.
Don't say that in public. The Londoners will come.
You're brilliant. You do a lot of work.
I don't
But
like it.
we get great money and we get really great opportunities from living in Manchester, because we have a culture that we as queer people have created that gives us respect for ourselves.
So would you say, I'm sorry, I don't want to cut you off.
I was going to say that I do feel like Schloss really changed the game for that, because it paid people fairly. And I think when you look at the kind of culture of paying performers that has been built in Manchester, the Sisters Gorgeous, the Family Gorgeous were real spearheads of
They
that
really
as well.
were.
And Schloss was a real spearhead of that, of being like, we want that gem, exactly what you're talking about. We need to give that the respect in coin, as well as the space to be able to create.
Would you?
Oh, sorry.
I need to ask Mandla,
Go
because this
away.
is very heavy. Like, I just want to know about whether that's the case in your side of the creative industries, and you're finding in theatres and in the world of performance that you're in. Do you feel like you're seeing changes in people's taste, or even your freedom that you have as a creative in that world? Are you finding it's changed, or has it always been?
I think the kind of scale at which I believe I can make work has definitely changed. I think for a really long time I didn't ever imagine sort of going beyond making a show, a whole hour-long show, and performing in it. I always knew I wanted to write theatre, but I guess that wasn't that was just picturing me as a writer and someone else kind of doing the acting or whatever. And I think one of the things that kind of led me to realise I can do this was Keisha Thompson, amazing woman.
Why is she everywhere? Is there several of her? She's everywhere. She's so present.
Very
it's amazing.
Yeah, and there's so many artists who I know who Keisha's always supported and got on board on something. But when she was making her last show, Man on the Moon, she was like, do you want to hang out with me throughout the process and just see all the different things I need to make a show? She showed me all her spreadsheets, all the scripts. I'd just sit in rehearsals and I was just oh, it's not that it is doable. It's not you don't need and that just kind of I guess shot something in me oh, you can write something that's a bit longer, that's a bit
and
bigger.
Did you know that you were going to be performing what you wrote? Was that something that you just?
No, I just kind of wrote something and then I just kept adding things into it, and it was really, really long. And Barry Priest, the he founded the LGBTQ Arts and Culture Network. I remember what it's called. And he kept being mandla, you should apply, you can make a show. And I was like, I don't know if I can make a show, Barry. And he was just look, I feel like you can definitely do 20 minutes and just put in an application, see how it goes. And I got £1,000 of funding, and I got to rehearsal space in a theatre, which I'd never had before, just space to sit in a room and think about what I want to write and perform, and that's sort of led that work in progress performance led to what is now As British as a Watermelon, and that was 3 people just being you can do this, just think a little bit bigger, and I think as I'm going forward now, scale is something, even being at the Edinburgh International Festival is something that I was I was okay, maybe I'll do the Fringe or something, but I think there's nothing to say that solo work or solo performative work should have a limit on where it is. Contact putting me in the main stage and not the studio, and trusting me and those audiences still coming. I feel that's something that I definitely feel I didn't envision when I first started making work, but I feel the cogs are turning, things are, and seeing the growth of the bursary. Like when me and Roma first got it, it was like £1,000 and rehearsal space in kind, but now I think it's grown to £2,000. And like the like conversations that we had with Contact, like hustled to get, are now a part of that package. And so anyone who gets that bursary gets to have a space, have a space to do their show at Queer Contact, and that makes me really happy to see. And like they get extra funding for like their resources as well. And so I'm just like, yes, these things should get bigger and better for the next artists. I think with us, we were like, oh yeah, it would have been nice to have this, and would have been good to have this, and seeing that growing and just becoming more accessible for more artists is just fantastic.
Amazing. This could be a controversial question, and I'm hoping it is. I hope this goes off and that we get cancelled on Facebook. No, I'm joking. I already had my Facebook hacked. I can't get cancelled again. What has been the biggest revelation / surprise about the industry that you work in? It can be negative or positive.
For me, I think it's working collaboratively, and how difficult that can be, especially as a young Black person. I feel like I sometimes need to work really hard to make sure I'm not spoken over, and like I think maintaining autonomy and ownership over my work, my ideas. Something I recently I'm trying to get a new play commissioned, and I had a conversation with a theatre, and I had a conversation with my friend who has got like a Black-led producing house interested in the script, and they said, before we go ahead with this theatre that's interested in it, we need to have a conversation with why they, as a white organisation, are interested in this story that's very Black, that's very African, and just find out why they want it. What their intentions are with that. And I was like, oh, that is a really good question. It is, and it's really important to kind of think about why white people are so interested in Black stories. And I won't go into it, but maintaining ownership of my work has been difficult, and especially the more successful it gets, apparently white people will try and colonize it. And I just think it's absolutely disgraceful. And the more like Black artists I've like talked about this particular situation, people are like, oh yeah, no, that is something that happens, and often you don't feel like you can speak up about it. Something that sort of goes on behind closed doors, and you kind of don't want to kick up too much of a fuss and get blacklisted as someone who shouts on Twitter and can't be hired. So it's an interesting one.
Great answer. Anyone else, Beau?
Well, it's the thing about, putting people on the stages and how you can appear outwardly, whereas actually behind the scenes all the people are holding the cards, all those doors are shut, and you don't get to be in those conversations. And it's like, I think that's one of the things that still surprises me about the industry constantly, is that, in entertainment world, 9 times out of 10, the heart of whatever it is, whether it's music, whether it's performance, dance, film, the heart of that comes from, more often than not, marginalised voices and othered voices. But those voices never get to be in the rooms when the money decisions are being made, or when the big players are all chatting. That still surprises me, and I don't know how to change that, and I try and talk about that all the time.
Wait until they expire. They're all getting old now. We're just waiting.
People are lasting so much longer.
I know.
Oh, God.
Especially the rich ones.
Freezing their heads, all that stuff. God.
What surprised you about your industry?
Oh, God, mine sounds really boring now.
Go on, send us to sleep.
No, God, I will. No, you know what? It's probably the difference between arts education and the way that arts actually is in real life, and the difference of going to somewhere like an art school and where I went to like learn film, and the lack of actual real life
Updated knowledge.
Yeah, updated knowledge and real life education and real life understanding of what the actual arts landscape is. And, you know, art is subjective at the end of the day, but there is such a weird system within art schooling where it comes to like individuals marking and also never teaching you how to be a real artist. I was told I was going to be a freelancer as soon as I got out of uni, but I never knew how to do tax. I never knew how to
they never teach that.
do anything. I always thought that. I literally, as soon as I left uni and registered for self-employment, I literally sent them an email being like, I will teach, I'm not that good at it yet, but I will teach people how to do the form.
I will drag these young people down my path.
Let me do the form for them or something, because the form was complicated. I'd sit with you and do it. Like, you know, but I just think that there's such an imbalance with the way people in the arts are being taught versus how the real world is for them actually when they get out of it. Especially sort of the injustices that lie within art schools as well, with the backwards opinions,
problematic language,
the things that people are being taught, the things that people are being led in lectures and seminars are so backward when you think about it.
You're not set up for it when you leave.
You're not, but also you're basically being given a mark that could stand the test of time in your arts practice, or put you off the arts practice for the rest of your life, and then but due to a turf basically saying something in a seminar that makes you feel like you're not welcome. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. But she's very good at playing the violin.
Mm-hmm.
The institutions reinforcing the glass ceiling as well, though. There's a part of me that thinks that's very intentional. I say as the double art school dropout.
Ooh,
2 times.
It wasn't good the first time, so you gotta do it twice.
But I think that's just reinforcing this kind of like, stay there. Yeah. We're up here. You stay there.
Or we've not got enough spots for you. So we'll take all your money for as much as we can get. And then only about 1% of you will actually make it into the arts world. And so the other 99, just work at Tesco. That'll work for you.
I think personally that is touched on one of the biggest revelations about all the entertainment industries for me. And very much up here is the lack of calling people out for fear of the things you might have not called out before. And these things build and build and build. You don't call the little one out and then it gets bigger and then it gets bigger and then nothing gets called out. And that's something that has surprised me. Like blatant bad behavior gets covered up like that because it almost becomes a conspiracy the first time you don't call it out. Do you know what I mean? If you have a problematic friend or something who's a bit weird when they're drunk, you let it go the first time, then you feel bad the second time because you let it go the first. See what I mean? It just seems to have a sort of knock-on effect, and I do think that that's in all industries. I'm always surprised. I find it weird that I'm always surprised, but I'm still surprised by it when it happens.
And the majority of those people are the people who are getting into positions of power within industry, and at that point is when they make real damage.
Yeah. Sometimes without realising. So, leading from that, I want to ask, what advice would you give yourself when you were starting out? Now, knowing what you know now, if you could go back in time, quickly put your head out of the time machine and be like, by the way, don't do this. Or by the way, make sure you do this. What would your advice be to yourself in those very early stages of starting out on your career? What's the most...
Stop now!
Don't do it!
Back in the closet! No.
Go back in!
Please! No.
It doesn't get better!
Oh, it does.
It gets worse! No,
does.
it does.
It does. It does. And it's getting better all the time. I would say don't ever deal with somebody who won't ever email you an agreement. They'd ring you.
Boom.
When you email someone and they ring you, they never reply in emails. There's no receipt of that conversation. Don't fall for it. No matter how sound they are, don't
paper trail.
get a paper trail in everything. No matter how long you've known them, how much you love them, there needs to be proof it happened, the conversation.
I didn't realise until after I'd graduated that I'd spent 3 years writing things that were only in English, and English isn't my first language. So I was kind of like, what am I doing? This is my colonizer's language and I'm just not like putting anything. And I was writing characters who were white into scripts as well. So I had to kind of like decolonize myself, the way I think, the way I view the world. And like when I started using my own language in my work, I think I found my voice. My voice just got a lot stronger, and the things that I wanted to say got a lot clearer. And yeah, so I'd say, like, don't be afraid of the things about you. Yeah, don't be afraid of those things. Those things are actually really powerful and really important. Like, As British as a Watermelon started mostly because I was afraid. I'd spent a really, like, most of my life not telling people that I am in the UK because I have refugee status. That was, like, something I was afraid to, like, say about myself. And then, like, it's completely changed my life and my work and the way that I am. So, like, yeah, kind of, I feel like, yeah, little me. I always, like, make like a differentiate. Like, a lot of, like, trans people don't maybe like to talk about the name that they had when they were younger, but I feel like little Bridget, as I like to call her, kind of had enough people telling her to, like, be quiet and not to make noise and not to exist, and I don't know, not to be. And I kind of don't want to also abandon that little child that got me to where I am. And I am so different to her, but I wouldn't exist if she hadn't gone through all the shit that I went through. I think, like, yeah, just embrace yourself, embrace who you are. That's tell
us what mandla means, please.
Mandla means power, and it's the word for power in my language as well, actually. So anytime people say power in my language, they say my name.
Come on, advice.
Okay. I think mine's somewhere around, like, enjoy the failure a little bit more. Like, when I was starting events, I started a very small, free little cabaret in Blue Rinse in Northern Quarter. It was a pop-up in the clothes where it would just be a stage that would rise up, and then performers would do it for free on a Saturday morning.
Shouts to Ollie and the team.
And it was brilliant, and I loved it, and I'm so grateful I got to do it. But it didn't end up staying for a very long time, and it was really disappointing, and it kind of put me in a bit of a spell where I was like, well, I can't do this anymore. And then I started Mischief at the very beginning of lockdown, and then that venue we were working with fell apart, and that was really disheartening. And I thought, oh well, Mischief's dead now, like, it's never going to come back. And I just ended up pushing it under the rug again and not wanting to start it again. But all those experiences of things that went wrong, or things that weren't at their peak, or they weren't where I wanted them to be, those expectations were the reason why I failed, you know what I mean? And I actually need to enjoy the fact that they did, because I wouldn't have those moments of knowledge without them happening. Something my mom always used to say was, align your expectations with reality. And it's like, you know, if you're giving someone a really unrealistic expectation of how you want them to act, they're always going to fail, because it's not real for them, you know?
Yeah, it's not based in anything.
It's the same in the world, you know, like, I could expect you to do 500 star jumps when you meet me, but you're never going to do it, so I'm going to be disappointed.
I know. That's cruel of you.
Stand up today.
Barely stand.
But yeah, so it's just lining up my expectations was something I really wanted to teach myself, and also that my failure is the only reason where I am now is because of it, you know.
I don't know. I think me really thinking about it a bit more personally is I spent a very long time being very, very sad and wallowing in being sad. And I think in finding my queerness, you know, there was some part of it for some reason for me for a while that my queerness became synonymous with, like, all of the horrible things that had happened to me. And that because I was discovering my queerness, bad things kept happening to me. And then I was like, why? What is the correlation between these two? And is it me? And yes, but I was sad for a very long time. And I think I just wish that in those times where I didn't really have anything, or I was, you know, living in a horrible flat in Berlin and, like, having probably what was quite a rough around the edges time, to just take stock of what was happening, because actually there was a lot of little beautiful things within that now I look back and I go, yeah, well, a lot of bad things happened, or, you know, I know I didn't feel so great, but that was a really fun thing that I did. I know that performance came out of that, or that song came out of that. And I think, you know, as queer people, yeah, we are, for 1,000,001 reasons, especially when you're intersectionally othered, you know, you're a bit of a magnet for people who want to take something from you. And, you know, I think it's to make sure that doesn't become the all-encompassing thing of how we relate to our identities.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. Yeah. Amazing. Yeah, amazing answer. So I was going to ask what you feel. Can you feel that there's a change for LGBTQ plus artists? I don't know why I do that when I got to say it all. I'm just like, LGBTQ plus, la 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 la. It's like I've got a song for it. LGBTQIA. Plus. Is
that our new jingle?
Yeah, like sick. So do you feel like conditions have changed for artists within the community? Maybe things that have changed and maybe things that have not. What do you... no, I'm changing the question. So get ready for this.
Be your own boss.
What do you feel in your mind? What is the next change that is needed for artists in the LGBTQIA plus community? Like, there's been a lot of change, there's been a lot of improvements, but you personally, is there something that you see as being something that can really change the game and maybe avoid some of the things that we had to go through?
Unionize.
Oh my God, I was literally just about to comment on it.
Unionize, I think, yeah, there's a lot of us that, you know, kind of going back to what I said before about the people who hold the cards in our city, in all of the different lanes, you know, there's a fear there for if you say something, you're going to get the rug pulled out of you and you're not going to be able to work, but there's going to be loads of other people who are going to go, ooh, there's a position I can slip into. And I think the change needs to be that we don't let that happen anymore.
And we come together, call those people out for what they've done and come as more of a community, because I do think we are still quite separated within our communities. And there are massive divisions in Manchester, but especially the Manchester queer community. I also think that there needs to be a big change for me, is that the queer people who are the faces of nights and faces of big events in the city need to be at the top of the totem pole a lot more, which is kind of what you were saying. And it's hard to get there, but I see a lot of faces of queer people, but not as many queer people being at the power end. You know what I mean? And that's something I think could in the next couple of years be even more. Like, it is massive that us all here are having more power when it comes to the events that are being put on the city, but there could be far more people in those office positions and those positions where we're around the table, because they're all around the table and then they give us a call and ask us to come in. We're never there for the first meeting. That's why I want to change.
I think most theatres I walk into, I look at the staff members and I'm just like, wow, everyone is white here. And I think that's really interesting, and especially in theatres where maybe the work that gets put on is like really intersectional and whatever. But I think the people who work in the industry are not as diverse as the venues would like us to believe that they are, and I think that's a problem. And I think I don't know how venues hire out their staff, but I feel like there's
usually nepotism.
Yeah.
Every industry.
Oh, it's so-and-so's nephew.
Yeah. So I think, like I applied, I did a job like a couple of years ago for a venue this was in Edinburgh, but like I'd applied for the job because it was like, oh, we have all this intersectional work and da da da, and I was like, oh great, but then the person who was in charge of like the existence of the venue with all his riches and stuff just kept coming over to me and saying really racist things, and there was like nothing anyone could kind of do about it because he is the money person, and even in our training we were kind of told like, oh, if he comes over to you, just try and leave as soon as possible. Not like, oh, hi, you're walking around being racist in a space where there's black people, can you stop?
Did you get a sense that he knew that was the dynamic and he could get away with it? Because that's what gets me. It's like they know they've got the power, so they push it all the time. It's like, go on, do something. Oh, you can't. And that's already someone who's curdled in their position. There's a lot of people who've curdled at the top, and it's time to go. And I think a lot of people hold tight and they don't want to lose what they have. And that's what a gatekeeper is. That's what a gatekeeper is someone who knows damn well they're not actually really bringing anything to the table anymore. Maybe they don't live a life where they know what's coming up and coming or what should be changing, but they can't admit it, and no one ever reviews their position or their input. Like creatively, I think that happens across the board. It happens everywhere. Every industry I've worked in, retail, fashion, everything. These people, honestly, like it shocked me meeting some of the people at the top of, especially one of the industries I just mentioned. The ignorance is extraordinary, but more extraordinary than that is the knowing they're ignorant and just carrying on. You have an opportunity, you've got the internet, you have the opportunity to go and find out what you don't know. You have the opportunity, you know where people are, you know who to talk to ask what things are, but you don't, because you almost want to keep us in your comfort zone. You don't want this industry to move somewhere that you can't come with us. And that's not art, that's not creativity, and that's something that I think a lot of people need to ask themselves for real. Like, are you furthering this? Is this a journey anymore? Or are we all just ticking your boxes so you can keep having your beautiful house in West Didsbury?
Stagnant
Water.
Like
a swamp.
Well, I just think it's like, we as entertainers and like producers and all this stuff, we don't have a HR. You know what I mean?
No, and if we did, they would be overworked.
Like, I just want someone to be like, and they want to keep us uncontracted and all these things so that they have the ability to prove to us that we could be removed at any point. Like, there have been businesses and places where I've worked where I've been, you know, the people at the top have assaulted me and like all this, that and the other, and have never ever been taken accountable for what they've done when I have brought it to the table and told people, and nothing has ever been taken accountable. And the only thing I've heard is people have said, oh, that happened to me, and telling me that all these things have happened before, and it shouldn't happen once, let alone 5-10 times. But the thing is, there's no system, which is why unionisation is so important, is that there's no system already for us to go to a group of people and go, we need to be protected, we need to be safe, and we need to be doing the right things within our community that put us and the rest of us at like the top and in safe positions. This doesn't happen. No. That's where it needs to go.
Yeah. And also, everyone who's listening, go to more live music, go to more live theatre, go and support your local acts. Like, this is not a game, and this is not a drill. Like, everyone needs the support, no matter how well things are going. It may seem one way online. You post all the time online. Your legs are everywhere online. But at the same time...
Wide open.
Talking about spreadsheets. But like, for real, like that's a big thing as well. And shouts to everyone who does support, the people who rock up all the time to all the cabarets and everyone. Like, you're amazing. Keep encouraging your friends. Everyone in the scene loves you. Like, I'm sure you have lots of regulars and people who come to shows that you're just like, oh, you know, you're precious to us.
Research your events as well. Like, look at the shows you're going to and research above, and look who runs them, and look who the corporations are that own every little thing and what they've done and who they have shares in and all this stuff, because it's important, and every penny counts, especially when it's the pink pound. You know, like, so many companies, especially at Pride, and obviously when we think about Pride, is that they make a lot of money on us, you know, millions and millions on our identities for things that we don't support. So it's being that conscious and going, okay, do I really want to support you and support this system? So be conscious is all I'll say.
Be conscious until you're unconscious.
Yeah, on Pride.
Consciously unconscious.
Until you black
and
out.
if you're an artist and an entertainer, go to other people's things as well.
Go to your friends' stuff, yeah, totally.
Go to other people's shows. Why don't people? I don't feel like people.
They don't at all. Also, it inspires your work to see something. I've only ever been inspired by going to people on like the same area of my thing. It's just why be boring.
Who's really inspiring all of you right now? Tell us some names other than yourselves.
Wow.
Oh, Beau. Who is inspiring me right
No one.
I think, well, with the Superbia stuff, it sounds really cheesy, but I'm inspired by like everyone who has kind of been involved in me being able to be in the position of even programming.
Oh, I've got one. I'm really inspired on an events level. I'm really inspired by Feel Good Club, Kira and Amy, who are part of Superbia, because not only is it an event space, a cafe, a home for a lot of queer people. What did you say? The central perk of Manchester.
Central perk of Manchester
yeah,
queers, isn't it?
Yeah. But it's also the fact that they're a really successful like queer married business that was never, they never expected it to do as well as it did, but we all fell in love with their story and what they were doing it for. And they're the most like, I've never worked with a company who are so on our side and ask us how we're doing. And every time I go, I get like, just, oh, do you want a coffee? We've made too many. Or, let me grab you a free book because they've written a book. Oh, go. Where's the camera? Available now at Waterstones. It's Feel Good Club book. It's amazing.
Quite a hard question. Well, Keisha Thompson, obviously I want to be her when I grow up. It's very impressive. I think just Kate O'Donnell really inspires me. She's meant to be here today.
Sorry.
Shouts to Kate though. Shouts to Kate.
Yeah. I think just the way that she has seen me and supported my work and always been like just a cheerleader, and like I know that like I'll sometimes when we get booked on things, I feel like has Kate kind of looked at this and gone, I think this is really white and you need to get some people who aren't white involved, and I think who else? Ms. Kim, she's very inspiring. She always just like has just the most positive and wonderful energy, and every time I see her she's just like, she has time for me and I'm like, you're fabulous, what? And I think like queer elders definitely, like Campbell X as well. I feel like it's really special to kind of I've recently started like picturing myself as like an older person and started being like, oh yeah, I will like get older, and I feel like for a really long time I just didn't like see that like trajectory. Now I'm like, oh my god, yes. So like
I was doing that at Carnival. When you see really cool elders, I was like, I'm gonna be you. I'm gonna be you with a violin over there for no reason. That's what I want. I want to be eccentric. Yeah, a bit like Andre 3000. We just like playing that flute in the airport.
Yeah.
Not that he's an elder, but like that's what I want to be. I want to be slightly dangerous but entertaining.
With a coat with birds all over the top of it.
Birds
just walking through
it.
Alexandra Park, surrounded by birds.
Covered in parrots. I'm actually aiming for that next week, so check it out.
Also, just a quick shout to Darren Pritchard, who has absolutely changed so many people's lives, given people careers, given people like stable income, put people on stages that they should have been on 20 years ago,
Giving them family,
giving them queer family, and Darren is incredible.
Yeah, check out Get Her Fabulous.
Yeah.
Seriously, like, and everything they're doing.
Totally.
Yeah. For real.
I worked with Darren the other day, and the way that Darren is so like solid on a plan, or just the way that they know their worth completely, and it's so inspiring. And coming from like a queer elders position, like I want to be Darren when I grow up. Like, such an amazing producer. And
the advocacy for the young queer POC performers that they're bringing up as well. You know, they will sit in those rooms and they will go, no, you're gonna give them the respect that they deserve.
Yeah.
Incredible.
I love Darren.
So, thank you so much, everybody. Where can we find out what you are up to next? Where can we follow you? Where can we support you all?
You can follow me on @TheRealBanksie, Banksie, on Instagram and all the other socials. Just look for Banksie. I have a monthly cabaret on the first Wednesday of every month, Mischief Cabaret at Feel Good Club from 7 till 10. It's really good. You should come down, as well as working at a couple of the bars. Just check out my Instagram if you want to see anything.
I can be found on Instagram mostly and Twitter. My handle is mandla.nla, mandla.ndla. Yeah. It's really silly, isn't it?
My Instagram handle is Beau Azra, BeauAzra. Beau. It's not Beau. Why would it be Beau? Everyone always
I like
calls
it.
me Beau. I have a residency. I do a cabaret at Albert Schloss once a month. It's a fun one. It's always got a theme, which I love a theme. I'm involved with Mischief, a bunch of different cabarets around the city. One project I'm going to start working on soon, which I'm super excited about, is I'm going to be the producer of Trans Social Club. Yeah, so that's going to be a bunch of community events for the trans community in Manchester and also Greater Manchester. We want to scope out to the boroughs.
Ooh.
So it's going to be some fun, creative, arts-led social events. Yeah, and then usually running around, I'll be the one with the beret.
You're not allowed
Banksie
anymore.
is never allowed to wear a beret again.
Yeah. And actually, I could be found at Pops Roberts on Instagram and or Lovescene _official. Thank you, everyone. Amazing.